I've been experiencing a growth of understanding and knowing God's love for me, and I'd like to share it with you. And it actually begins with understanding, in reality, the depth of my own sin. I think typically when I fail, when I screw up, I want to run from God. But I'm beginning to realize that when I screw up, I can run to God and begin to understand His love more deeply than ever. There's 2 times in Scripture when Jesus helps Peter catch a great load of fish. One time is at the beginning of Jesus' ministry, and the second time is a few days after Jesus rises from the dead. And the 2 stories are very similar. In both situations, Peter and his friends are fishing. They're professional fishermen. They fish all night and they catch nothing. In both situations, Jesus, a non-professional fisherman, tells them exactly where to fish. And in both situations, they catch a boatload of fish, more fish than they've ever caught in their lives. But there's a significant difference. In the first situation, after the miracle, Peter says, "Lord, depart from me, because I'm a sinful man." But in the second situation, a few days after Christ's resurrection, Jesus rushes to Jesus. He runs to Jesus. To start with, Peter says, "Leave me alone, I'm sinful." The second time, he runs to Jesus. What has happened to Peter? It's that Peter has grown in awareness of sin. See, Peter doesn't understand what he's capable of. If you remember, on the night that Jesus is betrayed, Jesus says to all the disciples, "You're all going to leave me." And Peter says, "They're all going to leave you, but I won't." And of course, a few hours later, he betrays Jesus. And yet, just a few days after that, when the same incident happens, Peter now is aware of the depth of his sin, and he rushes to Jesus. Tim Keller, a pastor in New York, says that we need to hold 2 statements in our heart, even though they're seemingly contradictory. The first is that we are far more wicked. Yeah, we're far more wicked than we ever dare admit to ourselves. And at the same time, we're far more loved than we ever dared even imagine. And you see, the 2 go hand in hand. When we finally understand the depth of our wicked nature, really our capacity for selfishness and sin, when we finally understand it, and we understand that Christ loves us, then we begin to understand the height and the depth and the width of the unknowable, the surpassing love of Christ. See, when we do everything great, of course He loves us. But when we fail, and then we sense He still loves us, we're now swimming in the ocean of His love. It is not legalism to be aware of our sinfulness. In fact, it's the exact opposite. It's freedom. The more we know love of Christ, the more we can admit the sinfulness in our nature. And the more we admit the sinfulness in our nature, the more we bathe in the ocean of Christ's love. That is how we grow in knowing the love of Christ. And it is beautiful.